Can you beat Sodden Sanctuary using only a mega-sized hammer? Ever since I started doing runs in this game, I've been hearing people talk about great hammers. Great hammer with holy is awesome, man, you gotta try it. So I did just that, and boy was I in for a surprise. What are the additional rules for this run, you ask? There are none, because this challenge would be hard enough as it is. How could a run with one of the highest damage weapons in the game be challenging? Well, you better watch and find out. Today, we see just how good great hammers really are in Sodden Sanctuary. This run hasn't even started yet and we already run into a problem. I don't know of a way to get a great hammer without fighting any bosses. The Warhammer is hidden just behind the Kraken Cyclops or Mad Alchemist, with no way around. And the only other option is a monstrous mace requiring devotion rank 6 in the Stone Rose Creed, which we can't get the materials for since we can't kill enemies yet. Instead, let's go about this another way. Create a character and name him Delete. Select the Knight class and make sure to choose the Stone Sellsword item. Quickly dive to the Unspeakable Deep, jump past the Sodden Knight, and make our way through to the Mad Alchemist. Skipping upgrades, buffs, and levels to get here makes my damage look not all that great. Luckily, a bit of patience can get you through this fight no problem. And a lot of healing too, I guess. Now back at the Stone Root Sanctuary, we join the Creed and place down a Stone Sellsword. Step 1 completed. Back in the main menu, we can create a second character, naming him Mega Bonk, for canonical reasons. Hopper is a good class since we get to freely select your stats, and grabbing the Amber Idol ensures we can transmute in the future. After starting on the boat, we immediately quit out and get back on the first character. Using the Stone Sellsword, we can summon Mega Bonk to play in co-op. Cool thing about co-op in this game, pressing pause renders the player movable, letting us walk around the game with both characters at the same time. Heading right out of the sanctuary leads to Sunken Keep, where we can enter a door and go down. At the bottom, we unpause second player and ta-da, both characters have now collected the Warhammer. Restart the game as Mega Bonk, and we have not fought any bosses yet, and still collected our weapon of choice. Pretty nifty, right? Except, we run into a new problem. Without the stats to wield such a monster, it does that right there. 4 damage, and swings slower than molasses. Skipping the Sodden Knight and collecting as many bags of salt available might just get us close. Along the way, I grabbed the blacksmith gloves for +3 in strength, snagged the fused metal ring for endurance, and snagged the gray pearl here in the pumpkin patch. Finally, we've got an extra heal and heavy mace fighter class 1. Had to sell a few things, but with the ability to finally swing the giant weapon, we can get to work. The ever so hidden wrapped link will help us dodge better, and farming some more salt to class 1 and 2 prayers means we can purchase Blessed Weapon from the Devara Creed for our actual build. Holy plus the power of bonking. Can't go wrong with that. Oh shoot, I need to get the bandage ring so I have any amount of health at all. Sodden Knight, here we go. Would you look at that, half health and a single hit. Nearly impossible to attack without taking damage, which will be a problem, but 3 total hammer hits? I can't say that doesn't make the inner me very happy. At the Queen of Smiles, we begin to see what could be so challenging for this run. Great hammers deal excellent damage. More than that, they deal crazy busted damage. But man, are they slow. We can limit that issue by sticking with regular attacks solely. Kinda hard to do though, because jumping attacks or a charged heavy hits with such serious horsepower. Also, remember that the idea here is to use Blessed Weapon for our buff. Doing so consumes our already limited stamina and requires we have a free moment to cast. Sodden Sanctuary really isn't that hard to tank your way through. In fact, they kind of encourage some good armor, but getting knocked back constantly isn't the most satisfying way to play. The Queen did her best, but in the end, a giant hammer always wins. Below here, we can grab the Bloodflower Charm for 10% more damage, which will probably be on the entire run. Bright Coral Ring could be nice for the stamina boost, and I grabbed the Band of Humble down at the center tree because it boosts Holy. With my extra salt, I move into class 2 Heavy Mace Fighter, finally letting me one-hand the hammer if I need my torch out. Under these circumstances, the Mad Alchemist really isn't a boss fight at all. He stands there getting staggered and beat down, almost making me feel bad for him. The massive reach of this weapon also provides a nice benefit of granting me a somewhat ranged option at all times. 2 enemies on you? Well, you can hit both, so it doesn't matter. Remember this battle as it's the only one to look this clean. And with even more salt, I could purchase class 3 Heavy Mace Fighter, moving towards our future weapon. As you can see, grabbing an item in someone else's world removes it in ours, so no double hammer, which you can't dual wield anyway. Summoning a blacksmith, we can upgrade the weapon to level 3. Plated Band Ring is here for extra strength, which I wore because I want as much damage as possible. Bloodflower Charm, Blacksmith Gloves, Band Ring, and Band of Humble Ring, all to maximize every hit. This was actually the wrong way to go about it, but we'll figure that out a bit later. The false Jester goes surprisingly well. His fast and nimble movements do easily connect, but my reach and damage make up for that. Problem is, my stats are going to be stretched really thin for this playthrough. I need salt for strength, heavy armor, stamina, endurance, and wisdom to use the prayers. Don't prioritize the correct nodes, and I'll be stuck up a creek with just a large, dull piece of steel. Gotta say, the holy infusion on it looks awesome though. Just a massive club of pure light to whack stuff with. So elegant. Finally having access to the totem brand, we upgrade into class 4 heavy mace fighter and head back down to finish business. Kraken Cyclops is a boss that easily catches you, and attacks consistently. Overall though, things went well, but stamina is rough in this one. Needing to dodge all the way through him and follow up with an attack every time leaves maybe the tiniest sliver of green energy left, if any at all. For a second there, I could only watch as my body was juggled 2, 3, even 4 times in a row. Nothing a couple more heavy attacks can't solve. If you thought small hammers hit hard, the mega hammers are right up your alley. Good old Castle Storms. Before the boss, we need one specific item. Armor Guardian's Ashes. Dropped from the Colossal Black Knights here, I managed to snag one without any farming at all. This is going to be used to transmute our weapon pretty much whenever we like now. I put it off though because the second hammer will not be easy to upgrade. Kraken Wyrm, you scaly beast. Why you gotta go get all jumpy every time I get you to no health? Oh yeah though, the damage is fantastic. 2 hits getting him to half health? I can easily jump hit him as he flies above me, and after a crisp encounter of the fiery kind, 5 attacks was all it took. For some reason, I remember this run being harder than it is. Looking back on it, nothing really stands a chance. So far, at least. With the wall jump brand now in hand, we buy one final soldier's poem from the merchant and level into a total of 33 strength. With 50 being the cap to reach, that's a solid head start. Beside one of the spinning wheels in this red hall, we open up a chest to find the steel armor set. I think it looks perfect for a great hammer wielder. Just needs class 2 heavy armor and a crap load of endurance to wear it. Through the hidden door, we meet with and join the House of Splendor. I have the skull bat wings, drowned soldier ears, and ember skull ashes to immediately acquire 3 golden wine for 50% more physical damage and a lot more defense. Obviously, we're going to need to deal with poisoning ourselves now from drinks, but the buffs should be well worth it. And here's where my adventure took a turn for the worst of luck of all time. In this dungeon, you can farm out swordsmen with relative ease. They drop the upgrades needed for our current hammer. Small problem, an entire hour of farming yielded me 0 upgrades. Nothing I did seemed to get them to drop, and eventually I got frustrated and gave up. Settling for a weapon around level 4, I transmuted my current hammer into the Obsidian Pillar, a bigger hammer with something special tied to it. With the excess salt from farming, I was also able to level into class 2 heavy armor and gain 3 additional heals. I then attempted to farm out the upgrade materials for this hammer as well, with another hour of negative 100 luck. Not my day, I guess. Alright, time for the Tree of Men. What exactly is so special about this new hammer? It's a class 3 great hammer dealing, I believe, the highest base damage possible in the game. Upwards of 70 base damage. Important because the blessed weapon buff deals more holy damage based on your base damage. In theory, offering the highest possible damage from a single swing, which shows. Every hit on the Tree of Men looks beautiful. Only 3 hits after the Hanging Men are dead. I mean, the results tell you everything you need to know. Except what I didn't realize was the more I increased my build, the harder I was making the game. In a way. Plus 4 endurance since I can't even wear my armor yet, and we'll see what happens next. This blue cavern is important because it houses the next best buff we could acquire, that being Divine Blessed Weapon. Surprisingly easy to grab behind 2 skeletons, is just a better version of the Blessed Weapon buff. With a tad more salt farming, we can reach class 4 prayers only to find out, ouch. It happens to consume twice as much stamina and can only be cast 3 total times without mana potions. Heavier weapon means I dodge worse and use more stamina. Higher prayers means I get much less stamina. What I was slowly doing was creating the most unbalanced build of all time. Getting damage up there through the roof, but reducing my quality of life stats to the negative zone. As we see against the Disemboweled Husk, the damage almost makes the trouble worth it. Stagger works when it happens, and each clunk takes my foe down as speedily as possible. But then I rebuff my weapon and realize, oh no, it can't be. 2 magic uses gets me at half stamina? What does this spell do? The downside's insane. Heavy attacks quickly finish off the peg-legged captain, but that's scary right there, dude. As usual, I grabbed the Vile Vines ring for later and then teleported back to deal with the Dome of the Forgotten. You might be thinking, okay, the downsides are pretty steep here, but at the end of the day, damage is damage. And if you can out DPS boss health, what's the problem? Boss design. Boss design is the problem. Every boss in this game is given different resistances. The most common resistance to be given are blunt damage and holy magic. What are we using again? Gosh darn it, both of those. Yeah, so from this point on, most bosses are not immune, but very resistant to the big hammer, taking the massive DPS down to only a reasonable amount of damage. You hate to see it. The Untouched Inquisitor begins this trend with his nasty holy resistances. I didn't sign up for these fair fights, man. It was supposed to be a landslide in my favor. My sprite-only battle against this foe has forever scarred me, so at least I can dodge him well. Finally close to my win, I used my last cast of magic, and oh boy, are you kidding me right now? This has to be a practical joke of some kind. One move of stamina? I am in shock and awe, and not the good kind. Turns out jumping attacks are fast enough and do high enough damage that you don't really need the extra stamina. So that's something at least. Also, what's cooler than a jump slam down as a hammer user? There's almost no other way. Farming at the Whispering Ghost tier, I was able to turn in ashes for 1 mana potion at my Creed leader. This will restore my mana and stamina after casting, hopefully relieving the issues that we've been seeing so far. For the third lamb, I at least have a plan. Before entering the arena, take a golden wine, infuse my weapon, and then consume a mana potion to restore stamina. Heck, I feel like I'm playing Outward again here, taking all these buffs before combat. Once in the fight, we now start at max power. Ah man, I forgot finally equipping my full set of heavy armors, completely ruining my dodge roll. Oh well, it's fashion over everything else. Being this slow against a boss that leaps across the arena drags on for some time. My only good moment to attack is when he charges up lightning. Staggering him out of it is a nice plus, and like I mentioned earlier, tank is more than an option. It's a lifestyle. I didn't choose to be this way, guys. I was born like this. She ain't pretty, and I couldn't quite catch her break the first time, but a bit of luck and some hefty charge attacks built up gets us through. Actually, that surprised me. You can use the heavy charge attack to move forward and get in your damage at the same time. Learning something new about this hammer every fight, it seems. Now having access to the Hardlight brand, I decided to enter the Ziggurat before doing the swamp. Okay, the Dried King just had it out for me this time. My damage is solid again, but because my attacks hit so slowly, I can't stagger him. And never has he ever summoned this much fire underneath him, cooking me more than well done for the whole encounter. Also, poisoning myself from chugging health potions was unsurprisingly a bad combination. Still an easy fight overall that I managed to get through in one try, but he did kill me post-defeat, which I consider to be the highest form of disrespect. Walking all the way back up, I'm branded with Dart, finally able to move quickly again. Ah yes, not moving like I have cement in my boots is a breath of fresh air. The Stench Most Foul is merely a matter of healing through poison. Little mouths flying around hardly register as my hammer swings don't mess around. Bosses like this are great because it doesn't matter how slow I am. With no constant melee attacks to keep me ping-ponging around the platform, I can enjoy the fight for once. My only thing is, I don't really notice that much of a difference between the holy buff and the better version. Once you get to NG+, the downsides would be less severe, but I'm starting to think the minor buff would be easier to manage. Oh well, I just wanted to hit hard, and hit hard we do. With the Mossy ring for stamina regen and Redshift brand now in my possession, I'm kind of exhausted. Moving this slowly is more of a drag, so let's try and fix that. In Mal's Floating Castle, we can farm out a large amount of salt from the gigantic Crypt Keeper here. I can get him down in about 3 or 4 hits. Usually he's a pain, making it an inefficient farm, but not this time. I did also want his ashes, because using it with a Great Hammer grants their weapon, which is just massive and looks cleaner than my current version. I got one, but don't want to transmute just yet. With enough salt farmed out, we can finally get to 26 endurance, just now having a nice dodge roll, and we can get stamina up to 13 as well. Yes, I feel like I can move around again with all this heavy equipment. Truly a miracle. With some leprous ears found in the swamp, I grabbed an additional mana potion. Perfect subject to test it out on, here's Ronin Cran. Now able to dodge attacks with ease, the battle looks much better than others. When he goes to buff, I charge up as many heavy attacks as possible and clock him from safety. You do need to swap items in your hotbar more than often when buffs run out, but I didn't find it too difficult to manage. One last jump slam and he's down for the count. Now we can sneak into the ruined temple and snatch up the Bloodflower ring for 10% more damage. If I'm correct, we have a setup to deal the most possible damage for a Great Hammer, aside from the weapon upgrades. A total of +6 strength from items, +3 wisdom from a ring, and +70% damage from the other buffs. Basic enemies get stomped in 1 or 2 hits, but let's see how it fares against the endgame bosses. Murdiella Mal, she kinda sucks. With hefty resistances and fast-moving magic, you never get to write her off as a quickie. Several deaths here, as the magic was always catching me in a bad roll. Using the dart brand more aggressively for faster dodging did the trick though. Often I managed to forget you can use that in boss fights, even though it's a super valuable tool. Once a magic shows up, just dart away and she'll teleport near you to take 1 or 2 hits in the process. Like I mentioned early on, this run was made a lot harder than it really needed to be. Go into stamina and endurance early on instead of pumping damage as much. Then maybe wear a lighter armor set so you can save points there as well. I really don't know though, because giving up this armor would be tough. It looks really nice as a true hammer warrior. Her melee in the end got me clobbered, but just as she summoned flying beads of light, I got in there one last time. Mal is becoming one of the hardest bosses for me. Several runs now, she's just been beating me up the most. On the way to the Bloodless Prince, I took out one of these munchkins at the bottom and got the lucky drop of 1 drowned locket. Yay, a weapon upgrade, finally! Not the best damage I've ever done, but still great. Patience is definitely the key, since you must have stamina available when he begins punching down. And come on, this did not hit me. I've looked at it 5 times now, and there's just no way. Roll out of the way as he belly flops and come crashing down with a smash. Gotta throw on that weapon upgrade real quick, and only a few bosses left. The Coveted, well, they don't much enjoy blunt damage. In fact, I only needed 1 single buff for the Ghostly Twins, with 2 really large windows when the axe was in prime position. If ever you were wanting to enjoy this fight, I would recommend Big Hammer. Seems to be the most effective weapon here, and the reach never ceases to amaze me. Another quick smash and we send the undead back to their grave. Right outside the arena, we can find a drowned censer for an additional weapon upgrade, bringing us up to rank 5 with only 2 more to go. Luckily, I'm now in a really good spot where I can actually get the rest of them. Carsjaw the Cruel. Why can't every boss be this easy? Avoid the triple melee to start things off, and then we can retaliate with extreme malice. Got hit a bit later on because, well, as per usual, I'm out of stamina, but recover soon after for the immeasurable power of stagger to smash him to bits. Now that, my friends, is a good boss fight right there. Behind this arena, lying alone on the beach, we find 4 drowned censers. Pretty late in the game as usual, but glad we finally found them. Alright, so now we're going to use those to upgrade into a level 6 hammer. And with a diamond cluster found behind the lake sanctuary, we can transmute once again into the Bone Crusher. A class 4 great hammer that, oh come on, it weighs twice as much. For once, can a 2-ton weapon not actually weigh 2 tons, please? This one is simply put massive, and while we do lose the advantage of high base damage, we get better damage overall. While I take down this witch who happened to be in a bad mood today, let's ask another question. Why not use the class 5 great hammer? Well, a simple answer really, it sucks. The Trinity Scepter can only be acquired in the last area of the game, from the Forgotten King. While it has the best scaling, it does not have the best damage, and requires another 100,000 salt just to transmute. In my opinion, this Bone Crusher is way better. Also doesn't look like a disgusting yellow magic stick, which would be funny to use, I'll give it that. I am a tad slower again with the hammer weighing me down, and Miss Witch here threw her most deadly attacks at me. But you can't argue with the sheer force of this hammer, and now she's out of her hair for good. Having just transmuted my weapon again, I did go down a level. We can collect a few materials in the alchemy area with the frozen tome hidden below in a chest. Now maxing out the Bone Crusher and throwing a couple more upgrades into armor. I can't quite dodge very well like this either, so let's grind out more salt just above level 90 with 34 endurance. Yes, the one stat I rarely upgrade is at 34, just barely letting me dodge like a normal person. What's going down here at the Unskinned today? Ah, yes, that reach is immaculate. Couldn't avoid taking damage from every angle, as this boss can be a mess sometimes. With the Brute targeted down though after falling flat on his face, the Mage is easy pickings. Giant Hammer go wee! Might be hard to manage sometimes, but it makes for a fun playthrough, I must admit. The Forgotten King. Oh, the Forgotten King, you poor, poor thing. I strategically get kicked in the face to iframe through magic, and do you really need me to comment on anything else? Holy guacamole, that's some damage. The best I've seen yet. Goofy Mage has to be annoying as always with infinite magic, though the clobbering time was bound to win in the end. The Great Kraken Dragon, I've come to defeat you. Damage isn't all that good, honestly. The tall octo creature usually dies faster to fire for me. At least I can jump over most of the magic breath and slam down each time. This fight alone proves how much of an advantage fast weapons have in this game. You can get in way more hits with whatever buff you have attached doing most of the work. This keeps stagger building up better than even a mega hammer can do, just because of the speed, and you have way more stamina and time to work with when dodging. Of course, smaller weapons don't have the same brain trigger of, haha, look at me do big damage. Still, they seem much easier to work with in Sodden Sanctuary. A few rough spots here and there, but I think you knew how the ending was gonna go. Mostly with me falling through the air like a rocket for the 29th time. I can't help it. The opportunity's right there, so I gotta take it. For the end of the game, we're heading on in with 50 strength, 34 endurance, 19 willpower I desperately need more of, and 18 wisdom. Let's see how she performs. If you didn't know, the Nameless God is one of the few bosses actually weak to blunt. So for the final boss, we made him look a lot less intimidating than he really is. Don't get me wrong, the big guy is not here to play games. My slow attacks definitely force me into several grabs and sword swings, though heavy charging moves me forward for perfect attack opportunities, letting me stun him out of magic every time. One last jump slam for old time's sake, and the Ancient Husk is no more. There you have Sodden Sanctuary beaten using nothing but a mega 2-ton great hammer. So yeah, this somewhat easier challenge run turned out to be quite a challenge. Placing stats correctly is so important with a weapon like this. I did play some more in NG+, just to see how the old gal did there, and what I found is that the thing performs so much better in NG+ than it does in the base game. Problem is, the item requires so much effort to make work. You want to max the damage with 50 strength, but wisdom needs to be high enough for class 4 prayers. Then endurance at a minimum needs to be at 34, all the while leaving you wanting more stamina no matter how much you have. In NG+, the boost in salt let me perfectly round out the build and do amazing against the bosses. Kraken Cyclops especially does not enjoy this setup. Great Hammer's fun because Mega Bonk will never not be fun in virtually any game. Hopefully you enjoyed this run, and if so, a like down below would go a long way. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.